Welcome to the Her Story Circle podcast, the podcast that brings you the extraordinary tales of everyday women who are changing the world. I'm your host, Gertrude Mache, and I'd like to acknowledge traditional custodians of the land on which we meet today. I also like to pay my respects to elders, past, present, and emerging. Every week, we dive into the lives, challenges, and triumphs of women from all four corners of the globe. We're here to inspire, enlighten, and connect, sharing stories that uplift and empower. So grab a cup of coffee, settle in, and join us as we explore the incredible journeys of women shaping our future. This is Her Story, where every woman's voice matters. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Her Story Circle. This is Gertrude Mache here in beautiful Melbourne, Australia. And today I am graced with the presence of yet another fascinating woman. Welcome, welcome, welcome to our tribe. Please tell everybody your full name, where you're based, and share your story with us today.
Hello. Thank you so much, Gertrude. I appreciate this introduction. My name is Megan Fuciarelli, and I am coming in today from a suburb of Detroit, Michigan. So I want to take everyone back to a moment that I remember so vividly. It was the middle of a bitter Chicago winter. See, I'm in Michigan now, but I spent about 20 years in Chicago. I remember sitting in my car outside of a building where I was about to interview for a job I really wanted. The wind was so sharp, it felt like it was slicing straight through my coat and right into my certainty. I sat in the car with the engine idling. My hands were trembling, not just from the cold, but from the thoughts going through my head because of a choice I was about to make. I reached over and I opened the glove box, and nestled between my car registration and some old oil change receipts was a small jewelry box. Inside of it, my old wedding ring. I hadn't worn it in a while. I was divorced. I was pregnant, but I slipped it on my finger anyway. Not because I wanted to lie, but because I had learned that being a single pregnant woman might make people question my character or my commitment. See, that ring wasn't just jewelry, it was armor. It was a performance, a symbol of acceptable womanhood. And in that moment, it became my silence. Because somewhere along the way, I learned that being a mother without a husband would make people question my character. That being a professional woman who was also a parent could make me seem less committed. And I was told more than once that I would need to choose between motherhood and leadership. So in that moment, I chose to mask one in hopes of not losing the other. And that's what my story is about. Not just my story, but the quiet, invisible ways that so many of us edit ourselves to be seen as enough. Enough for the job, enough for the room, enough to be respected, hired, promoted, or even invited to the table. Let's talk about what it means to lead and live while carrying that weight. I still remember the job interview as well. I was asked a question that still makes me pause. Do you and your husband plan to start a family? That question, completely illegal, but also incredibly common. So I answered yes, eventually, knowing that I wasn't lying, nor was I telling the complete truth. I already knew I was pregnant, but no one else would have known. I wasn't showing, but I knew. And I was already editing myself to belong, to feel like I was enough. Because I had learned through subtle messaging, outright comments, and cultural conditioning that womanhood must fit a mold. that motherhood, leadership, and ambition couldn't live in the same body. They could not coexist. I got the job. And every day after that, I drove to work, reached over into my glove box, and slipped the ring onto my hand. And every night, I took it off and tucked it back into the glove box. That glove box became a ritual, a moment of shape-shifting. I remember one day forgetting the ring and panicking, running back to the car before someone could see me without it. And it wasn't just the ring. I kept conversations vague. I avoided any talk about family. And I used my married name long after the marriage ended, just to make it easier for others to accept me. I wasn't just doing my job. I was managing perception. I was performing professionalism, because society teaches women that leadership is about perfection, that power looks like detachment, that motherhood and ambition can't exist in the same body. And I believed it, for a while at least. But then my son was born, and everything shifted. A quiet voice inside me said, no more pretending. No more masking. No more negotiating my worth in rooms that weren't ready for my truth. So I shed the ring, never went into my glove box again. I reclaimed my maiden name, and I chose authenticity. Not just for me, but for him. Because if I wanted him to live boldly, I had to model what that looked like. And let me tell you, I did not miss a beat at work. I was damn good at what I did. And I was a present, loving mother. Those aren't contradictions, even though I was told for so many years I would have to choose one over the other. That's power. I was able to do both. But I had to let go of their standards to reclaim my own. So let me ask you a question. Whose standards are silencing yours? Who told you how to look, how to lead, how to live, and what might change if you stopped performing and started leading from your truth? To lead not despite who you are, but because of who you are. Society rewards performance. It tells women to lean in, but only if they don't lean too far. It applauds confidence until it's seen as too much. And it respects assertiveness until it's mistaken for aggression. We're praised for being strong, but punished when we show emotion. We're told to bring our whole selves to work, but only the parts that fit the mold. This is the emotional labor of belonging, and it's heavy. But I've learned something powerful. Something I want to share with all of you, that authenticity isn't weakness. It's radical courage. When I stopped editing myself, I led better. I created spaces where others didn't have to edit themselves either. And I raised a son who knows exactly who he is and never questions if he's too much. That's the power of choosing your own standards. This journey that we are all on, it's not about perfection. It's about presence. And I believe that the most powerful leaders are the ones who show up fully, flaws and all. So I want to leave you with this question, one that I'll be exploring more deeply on the Her Story stage. Before you judge, hire, promote, or include someone, ask yourself, who did they have to edit to be here? Because what we don't see is often what costs the most. And when we begin to see that, we lead differently, we create differently, and we belong differently. So the next time you reach into your metaphorical glove box, I hope you leave the silence behind. Because you, my friend, were never too much. You were simply too true for a system that wasn't ready. And that's your power. If this message resonated with you, if you've ever hidden parts of who you are to be seen as acceptable, know that you're not alone. And also know you don't have to keep shrinking to fit into spaces that were never designed for your fullness. We are allowed to lead, love, and live as our whole selves. And when we do, we give others permission to do the same. I'll be expanding on this story and so many others in my upcoming Her Story Talk when their standards silence your own. Until next time, be human, be kind, and never forget you are already enough just as you are.
Wow. Megan, what an incredible story. You know, when I listen to you speak, it just reminds me of how much women worldwide shrink themselves, sacrifice themselves for the perception that we are trying to put out there. And you went back to being authentically you. Now, what did removing the ring symbolize to you at the time?
Every night I removed the ring because it was no longer a part of me. But when I took it off for good, what it symbolized to me was no longer living a story that society had told me I needed to live. It was choosing my truth over what society had told me should be my truth.
Hmm. And when did you realize that you were performing an acceptance version of you, of yourself?
I think the moment itself was the first moment that I held my son. There was so much about my life that I felt like I did for others instead of doing for myself. And the moment I held him, I realized that the only decisions I needed to make moving forward were those decisions that helped him be the best human he could be. That was the only person I needed to make sure that I was there for. And that, of course, I wanted to be kind and genuine to others in my life, but I was no longer going to make decisions for the benefit of others while compromising myself, because I didn't want my son to ever feel that. And I knew, as a former educator and someone who studied child development, that my son would be looking to me and would be learning what his behaviors needed to be based on how I showed up as myself.
So, how much of women's leadership is shaped by unspoken societal expectations?
Unfortunately, I believe that societal expectations shape every aspect of who we are as people. And it's only through coming through that and having the courage to really, first of all, know who you are as a person and
Mm.
as a woman, but knowing where you stand and then having the courage to share that with others. I think over the years, there have been moments where it has been easier to do that. And there have been moments where it has become even more difficult. I think on a daily basis, we see examples of sexism. We see examples of the glass ceiling. We see examples of all of that. And I think it's not just women, but I chose to focus on being a woman because that is a challenge of being a marginalized group in our society that I deal with on a regular basis.
Mhm. And so, how much, did you feel more afraid of losing the job or of being fully seen? Which was the biggest fear?
At that point, I believe honestly the biggest fear was losing the job because I was a single mother and I was all on my own and I needed to be able to provide for my son. But I think it became after that, it became a story of I didn't know if I felt like I deserved to be seen or heard. I think a lot of that internal struggle comes from our own upbringing. And I was raised in an environment where children were seen and not heard, and that women abided by what the men around them wanted. And we catered for the men around us. And it wasn't a negative upbringing. It was simply how what I saw in society, and not just from my own family, but just in society in general as well. So
Mm.
I think it became more around the idea of being seen or heard because I didn't feel like I deserved it.
Yeah.
But there was definitely an element of making sure I had finances coming in and insurance for my son and myself. Absolutely.
Yeah, I can imagine you were at a crossroads. You've gone through your divorce, you have a baby coming, you're on your own. All of those
Mhm.
elements would have really impacted that decision.
Mhm.
So, how do organizations unintentionally reward self editing?
They do that unintentionally when they promote or hire based on an expectation.
Yes.
And if they do not allow people to be genuine in the workplace, when you have policies like our own government implemented many years ago of don't ask, don't tell, that's telling people to be very silent, right?
Mm,
It's saying, we
mm,
don't want to hear about it, so just don't talk about it. Um, there's examples for women. For myself, I have a multiracial child. There have been certain environments I've been in where I didn't necessarily feel confident in the moment that my relationship would have been viewed with as much respect as a non-multiracial environment.
correct.
So I believe that by not having environments where there's just an element of belonging, you are promoting people holding in or hiding pieces of themselves. When there's
Mm.
expectations that are to fit a mold rather than expectations to meet those performance attributes, that's where the issue comes in.
And even that question that they asked you during the interview, whether you and your husband intended to start a family, why should I be hired based on that question? That hopefully doesn't happen anymore, but it's
Well, I
just
mean,
shocking.
it was illegal at the time when it was asked, right? I mean, those questions around marriage, about family, about starting a family, whatever those questions might be, all of those questions are illegal. You're not allowed to ask them.
Yeah.
However, very few people report those questions. There's lots of ways to find out that information without flat out asking, but it was
Yes.
illegal then, and they still asked. It's
Yes.
illegal now. I think that some places still ask now.
Mm. So, what was the emotional cost of hiding parts of your life?
Oh, goodness. The true emotional cost of that, and for me, the highest emotional cost has been my own element of whether I deserve to whether I'm good enough, right? And I think that's why my message is so strong around you are good enough. I say
Mhm.
that to anyone who is listening to this live, to this podcast, and I also think I say that an element for myself. I believe that there is a truth in everything that I share with others that is evident for myself as well. I say things based on my experiences, and I know how some people feel because I've been there, and at some points I'm still there. But when society constantly tells you that you're not good enough, or even people who you consider close to you in different arenas say that, it eats at you and it's difficult.
Hmm. And the other thing about masking is that takes a lot of emotional energy to try and pretend to be what you're really not, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Was there a specific moment that you realized that you would never hide again
I mean, I think like I shared, it was holding my son. It was
when he was
being
born?
successful with that when he was born. I've experienced multiple miscarriages. So he truly is a blessing. I was told I would never be able to have any biological children.
Uh-huh.
Um, so he is my blessing on so many levels. And anyone who has held their firstborn, their newly born child probably can relate. The way they look at you that first time, you never forget that feeling. My son is 15 and I still remember that feeling. And I still feel like I see it from time to time when he looks at me.
Mhm.
Our children look at us without the judgment, especially when they first come into this world. And that's just a beautiful thing.
So how did becoming a mother redefine your understanding of courage?
Oh, goodness. You're asking some deep questions here, my friend. Um, I believe courage is one of those words that you define based on your own lived experiences.
Mm,
So for me, I wanted to model everything that I wanted my son to be able to be authentically himself without the fear of outside influence. So courage for me is being willing to have difficult conversations, being willing to be uncomfortable. I promised him I would never lie to him, even if it was not flattering to me. And to this day, I've lived true to that. I have not lied to him. Even when he's asked me very unflattering questions, I've said, "Do you really want the answer to that?" And I would tell him. But I think that takes courage. And I want to showcase to him that even if it's not something that's desired, you can be honest about it because it's a part of who you are and it doesn't define you.
I love that.
Mhm.
So, what would you say to women who are currently editing themselves to survive professionally?
First of all, know that they're not alone because I think sometimes when we're in survival mode, we just feel like we're all alone. And there's
Mm,
so many of us in that space who are editing ourselves and going through those struggles. So just first of all, to know that you're not alone. Second, to really assess how much it is costing and to reflect on whether you want to stay this, right? Ask yourself the question, would I be happy if I continue to edit myself 5 years from now? Who am I impacting by my editing? Because you are impacting more than just yourself, you're impacting everyone around you.
yes.
And what would be the worst that would happen if you stopped editing yourself? Sometimes, and this is a very, I don't know, unpopular opinion, I think, but sometimes if we think the very worst thing that could happen and we prepare ourselves for that, anything else that happens seems so much easier. Um, for myself, I believe that if I reflect in my life where I thought everything was going to be over, it was the worst thing in my life. If I reflect back on all of those moments, it wasn't the worst thing that ever happened to me,
Mhm,
even though in the moment it might feel like it was.
mhm, yeah.
And there were moments where it's very difficult, and I'm sure when you stop editing yourself, even if you do it in portions, because I believe that a lot of people are editing multiple portions of themselves.
Yes.
And I believe some of those pieces can stay edited, right? Maybe you have a horrible habit of, I don't know, maybe you like to have too many glasses of wine. If you're not hurting anyone and you're sitting at home having an extra glass of wine, maybe you don't want to tell anyone, and that's okay.
Mm,
It's about those larger aspects of who you are. If you feel like you are compromising pieces that you are proud of about yourself. I was
mhm,
proud of being a mother. I was
yes.
proud of moving out of a relationship that no longer served me and was no longer treating me with respect. I wasn't proud of being divorced. I was proud of no longer being in a relationship that didn't respect me. There's
Mm,
a difference. And I think acknowledging that difference of pieces that you edit of yourself and allowing yourself some grace and saying it's okay to be proud of choosing yourself first,
yeah,
that's where it comes in.
that makes a big difference.
Mhm.
So, how do we move from performative diversity to genuine inclusion?
Oh, great question. And this is really what I do on a daily basis, right?
Mhm,
Is all around diversity, equity, and inclusion and social justice work. When we are performing, whether it's performative allyship, performative kindness, performative diversity, when we are performing, we're doing that for ourselves. When we are truly being inclusive, we're doing that for the benefit of everyone. And I
mhm,
think that's the biggest difference.
yeah,
When you see companies who are performing diversity, making diverse hires, allocating a certain amount of money to certain diverse organizations or agencies, that is all about making themselves look good on paper. But
yes,
when we're truly inclusive and we're looking at how diversity can benefit everyone in an organization and in society, then that's where we're ultimately inclusive because we're
mhm,
looking at the benefits to a larger whole and not just the internal ecosystem.
I love that.
Mhm.
So, what structural changes need to happen in leadership pipelines, do you think?
First of all, we have to look at a strong analysis of where we currently are without shame and blame and guilt. There
Yes.
needs to be a strong alliance of where are your policies, who are your policies serving, and who are they not serving. And
Mhm.
then doing a quick analysis of the feedback from everyone that you work with, whether it's your employees, your clients, all of your constituents. So it's looking at qualitative data, quantitative data, your policies and procedures. But in order to make any shifts within an organization, we need to know where we currently are first. We need to have a strong, clear understanding of our vision and mission for the organization. And then we
Mhm.
need to create a plan to get there because not every company has the desire to be diverse and inclusive.
It's true.
I think that that's a misstep for organizations who don't. At the same time, if it's not part of their mission or vision, then that's okay to not focus on it because it's not part of their mission or vision. I firmly believe that it would benefit every organization to have it a part of their mission and vision, but they have
Yeah.
to see the value. Otherwise, it becomes performative.
Yeah. Now, how do we raise sons and daughters who don't feel like they need to shape ship to belong? So, you and I share something in common. My
Mhm.
little grandson is biracial, and I know that his life is going to be very, very different from mine.
Mhm.
He's going to have to fit into spaces where he's not too white, he's not too black. He kind of lives between two worlds.
Mhm.
What can we do for the next generation?
So I will share some experiences of what I have done with my son. I'm not saying that I'm a parenting expert or anything else. However, I do feel as if my son is a phenomenal human. And we have lots of people who have met him that would agree with me on that. I think the biggest piece and what I have tried very hard to do with my son is to help him acknowledge that he is multiracial and that he is very close to the white side of his ancestry because of my family, who he's very close to,
Mhm.
and that it doesn't matter what his bloodline is, society will see him as a Black man in America. And I think that's important for him to acknowledge because he was raised in a very white world for a large portion of his life. So his mannerisms, how he reacts to things, the jokes that he says, some of his best friends are all very much in that white environment. And I
Mhm.
need him to acknowledge and recognize that although he was raised in that environment, although he is raised by many white family members, that society does not see that. It's not like he carries a family picture on his chest as he walks
Mhm.
around. So
Mhm.
it's important for him to acknowledge both sides. At the same time, I also understand what you're saying about your grandson, where in elementary school, my son was not white enough to fit in, right? Because
Yeah.
he was one of very few students of color. And I think he was only one of two Black children in the school. And then when he went to middle school, he was too light to fit in because he went to a predominantly, actually all Black school.
Mhm.
So in middle school. And then now he's in high school and he's in a very diverse environment. And he has finally found his people. He has people from all over the world that are his very close friends.
Yeah.
Because the school is so diverse, he
Yeah.
had the opportunity to meet lots of people. And I share all of that because I wanted to make sure that even though in his elementary years, he was surrounded by a lot of whiteness, right? Within society, within his school structure. What I did is made sure that we went to a Black barber, that he had a Black doctor, that we went to some of my friends who are Black for meals, that we went to a Black church, that we did all of that so he didn't lose touch with his other half of his family.
Yeah.
And I
That is
know that there's a lot of pieces there that I could still do more of.
that's wonderful. But you've really put things in place to ensure that although he lives in these two worlds, he knows who he is.
Mhm.
And I think that's really crucial too.
Yeah.
Absolutely wonderful. So let me end our interview with two questions that are a bit of a thought experiment, okay?
Okay.
In the first one, I am going to teleport you back to the younger you, the young woman who found herself going for this job interview, doing what she thought she had to do to survive, if you could go back and give her 3 nuggets of wisdom based on what life has taught you up until this point, what would those 3 nuggets of wisdom be?
Oh, this is a great question. The first one, enjoy every moment of being a soon-to-be mother, and do not allow anyone to take away your joy in any facet. I think another piece would be that I was enough and it was okay for me to make that decision. Similar to what I shared earlier of I wasn't proud of being divorced. I couldn't see the other side of that, that I was proud of leaving a relationship that no longer served me. And I think I would remind myself of that so I didn't have to wait 15 years to learn that about myself. And I think the third little nugget would be that people in that environment, because after I shared, people were extremely supportive, and whether they had judgment or not behind their heads, I didn't see that. And I wish that I could have helped myself learn that sooner, so that I didn't have that weight as a pregnant woman, and worry of what might happen had I showed or told them earlier.
Absolutely beautiful. Last question is futuristic, and I'm going to teleport you into the future this time.
Okay.
And we are going to go and meet the 90-year-old you. Maybe she's sitting in her rocking chair, surrounded by her children, her grandchildren, whoever is with you at the end. If you could teleport and go and meet this wise woman who has led you up until this point, what will you say to her when you finally meet her? And I'll tell you the reason why I love asking women this question, Megan. A lot of women don't realize that the wise woman already exists in us,
Mhm.
that she's that quiet voice that told you, speak up, just tell the truth, and released you from the burden that you were carrying. We look outside of ourselves for solutions all the time, yet the solutions are within.
Mhm.
So, what will you say to this wise woman when you finally meet her?
Mm. I think the only thing I could say is thank you. Um, Thank you for still caring for others while also allowing me to believe in myself enough to do all of the work that I've done over the years. And honestly, at 90, Gertrude, I don't think I've shared this, but I was not expected to live past the age of 40, and I've surpassed that. So goodness gracious, if I meet my 90-year-old self, I would say, "Woo, you definitely surpassed all odds." It's okay to rest. So that question kind of gets me on a couple different levels, but I think I would just say thank you and give her the grace to rest, because even at this point, I don't think I rest enough, because I just see so much in the world that I would like to do something about. And just like my wall says, be the change we wish to see in the world. I feel like I have to be that. So I think I would tell her it's okay to rest.
I love it.
Mhm.
Thank you so much, Megan, for showing up and sharing your story. It's stories like this that make me want to wake up and share every single day. We do change the world through our stories. Incredible story that you had today. Thank
Thank you
you.
so much. Thank you.
And thank you to everybody who tuned in. The Her Story Circle is not just a podcast. We are a social impact movement that brings you the stories and voices of women from all over the world. We share our stories to uplift you, to inspire you, to energize you, but most importantly, to help take you from where you are now to where you're trying to go. So if you are a woman who is struggling with your identity, hiding aspects of yourself, and you need support, you need help, there are professionals out there. I had Megan's website at the bottom of the screen. Reach out, get a mentor, Get someone who could guide you and navigate you out of that situation, because it takes a lot of effort to be what you're not. Or if you know someone who is needing support, please tag them on this video. Share this podcast with your colleagues, with your friends, with your family as well. I'll be back again tomorrow, everybody, with yet another amazing guest. In the meantime, have a fantastic day, morning, or evening, wherever you are in the world. And Megan, thank you again for this interview.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Bye for now, everybody. Thank you for tuning into the Her Story Circle podcast. I hope today's story has inspired you to believe in the power of our stories and the difference you can make in the world when you use your voice. I'm Gertrude Mache, and it's been an honor to share this space with you, where voices from all walks of life come together to weave a rich tapestry of diverse perspectives. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review our podcast to help us share these stories with more listeners. Follow us on social media by looking for the Her Story Circle podcast for more updates. And join us tomorrow for another episode filled with courage, resilience, and empowerment. Remember, your story matters, and together we're building a stronger, more inclusive world. Until next time, keep making her story.